Okay, my name is Bobby Vaught. So I was just thinking about something. These BBLs, or what's known as a Brazilian butt lift. Okay, so I was just wondering, not that I would get one myself, but I was just kind of wondering how much would that cost if somebody wanted to get one. So I did a quick search. Somewhere in the neighborhood from, as best I can tell, somewhere between $8,000 to $16,000, and it just dawned on me, capitalism must be really, really good to these people. I mean, think about it. These are people who are clearly not still on Maslow's first or second level. In any event, I just got a curiosity. I did a search. How many people in Cuba can afford $16,000 BBLs? No, that's not a joke. That's actually what I searched. How many people in Cuba can afford $16,000 BBLs? This AI is fascinating. I mean, within a few seconds, it searches numerous articles and puts together the research for you, and you just type it in, and it comes up with. So here's what it says. Somebody told me that I make my YouTube videos a little long, so I'm going to read this really fast, okay? And let's just go through it here. Here's what it says. How many people in Cuba can afford $16,000 Brazilian butt lifts? It is highly improbable that a significant number of Cubans can afford a $16,000 Brazilian butt lift, BBL. Here's why. Lower average income. The average monthly salary in Cuba is roughly equivalent to 16 US dollars, the currency equivalent of 16 US dollars. I have to acknowledge, and I just got to be straight up with you. If somebody had asked me, and without looking it up, if somebody had asked me, what would you guess is the mean or average income in Cuba? I would have guessed something higher than 16, the currency equivalent of 16 US dollars a month. I mean, that just kind of sounds, yeah. We know Cuba is very poor. It's a socialist economy. But as we're going to find out here in a second, in case anybody didn't know, but I would not have guessed $16 a month. I don't want to quibble or argue about it, though. That's what the AI came up with. If somebody watching this thinks it's higher, by all means. But, I mean, let's not bury the headline here. Suffice to say, whatever it is, it's not good. Okay, so let's continue. While there are variations in income based on factors like experience and location, and some individuals in certain professions like healthcare and education might earn slightly more, the vast majority of Cubans even earn considerably less than what would be needed to afford such an expensive procedure. High cost relative to income. A $16,000 BBL is exorbitant compared to the average monthly earnings of most Cubans. Economic challenges. Cuba faces significant economic challenges, including low wages, high inflation, and difficulties in accessing basic necessities. This economic reality impacts the purchasing power of the population. In other words, regardless of what you think of the income relative to prices there, they don't have purchasing power. It's not going to happen. Limited access to luxury goods and services. I think most people would consider a BBL to be a luxury good or service. Due to the economic climate and a state-controlled economy, access to expensive non-essential goods and services like a $16,000 BBL is limited for the general population. I want to come back to that in just a moment. However, it's worth noting, private sector growth. There is a small but growing private sector in Cuba, with some individuals earning significantly more than the average salary. The private sector, the small private sector in Cuba, earning more than the others. Gee, go figure. Potentially through activities like freelancing or working in tourism. Remittances. Some Cubans receive financial assistance from family and friends living abroad, which might provide them with additional resources. Medical tourism. Cuba has a burgeoning medical tourism sector offering procedures like BBLs But these are primarily limited, I misread that, but these are primarily targeted at foreign patients. I get it. So in other words, foreign patients, in other words, people not in socialist economies, in other words, I don't know, maybe some from the United States who go down there to get BBLs. In other words, people who could actually come up with the money. In conclusion, while there might be a very small segment of the Cuban population who could potentially afford a $16,000 Brazilian butt lift, likely through means such as private sector earnings or remittances, it is not a feasible expenditure for the vast majority of people in Cuba due to the country's economic realities and the low average income. I wanted to go back and read that one sentence. Scroll back and find it. Here it is. And I want to slow it down this time. I'm just going to read this one sentence, but real slow, just for effect. Okay, maybe not quite that slow. Let me try again. Limited access to luxury goods and services due to the economic climate and a state-controlled economy, or in other words, government-run economy, or in other words, socialist economy, centrally planned economy, due to a state-controlled economy. Where was I? Yeah, here it is. And a state-controlled economy, access to expensive non-essential goods and services like a $16,000 Brazilian butt lift is limited for the general population. Gee, go figure. Until next time, hope life is treating you well. Have a great day.